If you ever feel out of control around food, you're not alone, and you're in the right place to learn practical, no-nonsense information about why you binge and how to stop. Binge eating does not mean that something is wrong with you. It's a natural but primitive brain response that you can correct. If you're ready for change, sign up for the Brain Over Binge self-paced online course for less than $20 per month. And if you feel you need personalized support, we also offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching. To learn more, go to brainoverbinge.com/subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the show. This is the Brain Over Binge podcast, where you learn a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. I'm Kathryn Hansen, your host, and whether you're a regular listener or you're here for the first time today, I want to welcome you. My goal in this podcast is to give you an empowering way to view your binge eating habit, and also a practical way to overcome it. Today I'm going to be talking about your motivation for recovery, and how to look at your motivation in a way that promotes a helpful mindset for ending the binge eating habit. The first thing I want to say about motivation is that a desire for recovery is absolutely necessary. In order to stop binging, you have to want to. And that doesn't mean you have to want to quit in every moment, but overall, you have to have reasons why you no longer want this destructive habit in your life. If someone feels very little or no desire for recovery, then their higher brain is likely to continue following the urges to binge from the lower brain. The higher brain, or the higher self, needs to be motivated in some way in order for any approach to work. This goes for the Brain Over Binge approach or any recovery method or strategy or therapy. If you're listening to this podcast, it's a given that you do have a desire for recovery. If you did not have that desire somewhere inside you, you would not be seeking information on how to overcome this habit. I want you to think about some of the reasons why you no longer want binge eating in your life. If you're like most people, you probably have some very inspirational motivations for recovery, like possibly becoming a better friend or a better parent or daughter or son or spouse. Some of your reasons for recovery could be so that you can better focus on your career, or so that you can have more energy to pursue goals, or have more time to travel, or volunteer, or simply enjoy life more. Some of your motivations could be highly specific, based on something you're trying to accomplish in the near future. For example, if you're trying to get a master's degree, you may want to recover so that you can have the time to study and achieve that goal. It is very helpful to have motivations like this, and it is very helpful to reflect on your reasons for recovery and think about them often. And it's great to consistently remind yourself why you want to stop binging. This can help you, especially on days when recovery seems challenging. But I want to give you something else to consider when it comes to motivation. While having inspirational reasons for recovery is definitely a good thing, it's also important to remember that quitting binge eating is not going to lead you to suddenly having ease and peace surrounding a lot of things in your life. And it's not necessarily going to lead to your other problems going away or you being able to accomplish the goals that you set out to accomplish. There are probably going to be days, even after recovery, when you can't seem to find much positive about your life. Because this really happens to everyone at one point or another, whether they were a binge eater or not. When this happens, when you're having really hard days when you can't see much positive, I want you to think about what may happen to your motivation to become and stay binge-free. For example, what if your main motivation for recovery is to succeed in your career, but then you lose your job? Or what if you want to recover so that you can heal your relationship with your spouse, but then your marriage falls apart, even while you're binge-free? What if you come to the realization that you can't possibly achieve a particular goal that motivated your recovery due to possibly a physical or financial limitation? Or what if everything just seems to be going wrong? If all of your motivations for recovery are based around you accomplishing things or becoming the person you want to be, it's possible for your motivation to feel like it's falling apart when things in your life start to fall apart. This does not mean that your ability to recover or to stay recovered has diminished at all. I'm talking only about your desire for recovery, not the ability to do it. I'm going to give you a scenario that you may be able to relate to. Let's say you're newly binge-free, and you're dismissing the binge urges, and you're eating adequately, and you're doing well for, let's say, about a month. Now, this is not long enough for the binge urges to completely go away, so you're still having urges during this time. And then something challenging comes up in your life, and suddenly you feel overwhelmed with a particular problem or many problems. Now remember, in this scenario, you're still having urges to binge because that's the habit. That's what your lower brain has been conditioned to think you need, regardless of what's going on in your life. When you feel this sense of overwhelm and you feel like things in your life are going all wrong, then during your binge urges, you may have thoughts like, you'll never achieve your goals, so what's the point of even trying to recover? Or, life is so hard anyway, even without binge eating, so you might as well binge. Or you may have thoughts that say, you wanted to recover so that you could enjoy life, and life is just no good right now, so there's no reason to dismiss this urge to binge. You can, of course, dismiss all of these binge-encouraging thoughts as neurological junk, and you can avoid giving them any attention or value. But an additional technique that I want to suggest today is for you to reframe how you think about your motivation to recover. If you reframe your motivation, it will make those type of thoughts seem even less logical. What I mean by reframing your motivation is to adjust how you think about your reasons for wanting to stop binging, so that these reasons are not only about things going well in your life, or you achieving goals or solving problems or becoming your best self. Although it's great to imagine hopeful possibilities for yourself after recovery, I want to suggest for your core motivation for recovery to be freedom. With freedom as your primary motivation for recovery, it prevents life's problems and inevitable hardships from shaking your desire for recovery. I know that you want freedom from binging, or you would not be listening to this podcast. But if you can start viewing freedom as your fundamental motivation, it can provide protection against your motivation falling apart when you have hard times. When I was in the depths of binge eating, I thought that freedom was a vehicle for achieving my other motivations for recovery. For example, I thought that freedom from binge eating was how I was going to become a better friend. Freedom was how I was going to become more successful in my career. Freedom from the habit was how I was finally going to be able to enjoy my life. But as it turned out, freedom was actually the goal in and of itself, whether or not I lived up to any of my other expectations. Once I was free from binge eating, I could even be a terrible friend or fail completely in my career or not accomplish any of my goals and still not feel tempted by thoughts saying, well, you might as well binge. I realize that may sound a little odd because, of course, being unsuccessful was not actually a goal of mine, and being a terrible friend was not something I ever set out to do. But there were times early on in recovery when I did not even come close to the expectations that I had for myself or the vision I thought recovery was supposed to be. There were times when the reasons that I wanted to recover did not even begin to materialize. Even today, when I've been recovered for over 12 years, some of the original reasons that I wanted to recover never actually happened. But in no way, shape, or form has that ever tempted me to consider binging. That's because the freedom was worth it all by itself. I was free to fail and not worry that a binge would result. I was free to have horrible days and to cope the best way I knew how, because I knew that binge eating was never truly a way to cope. I had the freedom to pick myself back up when relationships went badly or when life didn't go as planned, without having to pick myself back up from a binge as well. Desiring freedom is about desiring the opportunity to experience all of what it means to be a human, even the bad parts, without binge eating getting in the way. Freedom does not hinge on your accomplishments or what's going on around you, or your success in relationships, or even your own happiness. The other motivations that you have are wonderful, don't get me wrong, but when freedom provides the foundation, you always have a reason to recover. Using freedom as motivation is also helpful if you have trouble finding reasons to recover in the first place. If binge eating has been clouding your life for a long time, you may not be able to fully see what your life could be like after recovery. But no matter what life brings, that opportunity to have the freedom from food issues is so worth it. You'll be free from the shame, the physical discomfort, and the feeling of being out of control of your own life. If you can experience even a moment of that freedom from the consequences of binging, and you can get excited about that, it can solidify your desire to keep going and to keep moving toward recovery, despite any uncertainty about what your life might be like afterward. I encourage you to keep focusing on all of your motivations to recover. But remember that underneath those reasons lies a desire to be free, to live all of your life, the good and the bad, without the pain of binge eating. That concludes my talk today on reframing your motivation for recovery. I hope it's helped you see things in a new way, and that it will prevent you from losing your desire for recovery when life feels like a struggle. Also, remember that you can get my free ebook, The Brain Over Binge Basics, by clicking on the link in the show notes. The free ebook focuses more deeply on the 5 components of dismissing urges to binge, which are also discussed in episodes 4 through 8 of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening today, and I hope you'll join me again next time. No matter where you are in your recovery, I want to encourage you and remind you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the host of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey. Need more help? You can find all of our current and upcoming options for support at brainoverbinge.com.